Hello and welcome to CEOs Get Real. I'm your host, Christopher Marston with Exemplar. And today we have Syed Gilani, the CEO of Safr, a rideshare company focused on women and others, let's just say, at least women.
I appreciate it. Thank you, Chris. Thank you for having me today.
And where did you come in from today?
Oh, Boston, my friend.
Oh my gosh, you made the journey.
It was a great invitation to
Yeah.
your beautiful house and to your beautiful office. So I want to make sure that, I make it.
Well, you did. You made it on time, and we appreciate having you.
I appreciate having me.
So you and I met a few years back when you were starting the company. It was 2017. When did you start Safr?
I think early 2017 when we met.
Okay, it was right at the beginning.
Yeah, right at the beginning.
Amazing. So how did it start? Because I understood it when I met you as a rideshare company for women that's safer than, that's the name, right?
Right. So the idea came about from the gig economy. The gig economy that's out there in the rideshare space wasn't giving equal opportunities to women. Only 14 to 20% of the drivers were and still are women. Because of the safety reasons, they never drove or still don't drive after sunset. And so their capacity to earn more or equal to men was being reduced by the basic threat of security. On the rider side of it, we saw that not many women were taking other rideshare companies rides because of the safety reason. So if a woman who wants to work late at night, or if the woman who wants to work early in the morning, they had to think twice. Can we stay in the office late? Can we go early in the office? Can we do what we want to do? And that's why we realized that there is a bigger opportunity out there which could allow women to earn whenever, however they feel like earning. We also realized that under the UN human rights law, one of the basic human right law is that the right for transportation or movement within the geographical boundaries of a nation. So if a gender, which is 60 or 56 or 58% of the world's population, cannot move freely within the geographical boundaries, let it be the United States or Europe or Asia or Middle East or Africa, wherever they are, then that creates a very big human rights violation problem as well on the sideline. So how can we empower 58% of the world's population economically and socially? So our answer was Safr. And the idea of Safr was that women drivers can drive women, children, and elderly. So it started off from that notion, and we realized there is a big market here in the US and across the world.
So Syed, how did you come about knowing that that was a problem, right? Women inherently know if they're experiencing fear or they're not safe, but how did a man come up with the idea, right? Or how did you notice that gap?
So let's go back 20 years ago. Like you, I studied economics and finance, both undergrad and grad. So when I heard the Oxfam study that 58% of the world's population makes less than 2% of the global wealth, that seemed very unfair for everyone. I mean, it doesn't matter which gender you're from, it will look very unfair to you that why this is happening. And when you see such a big population being disenfranchised from economy, from the GDPs of the countries, then you, as an economist or as a business person, you would try to find solution for that, right? So from there on, I was thinking about it. Growing up in Pakistan, which is male-dominated society, I had a chance to go around the region, saw where the women are. So where one household will have one car, and they will have to wait for the male figure to come back, and then be at the mercy of that man's whim that man would take you out to go wherever you want to go. So we saw that there's a really, really big opportunity where government is not providing the public transportation infrastructure or safe transportation infrastructure. So what options a woman would have? None. So what are the contribution to the GDP? Hardly any. So from that perspective, when you dig deep, you find out that this imbalance, that bias in the economy, is not made yesterday. It was even worse 200 years ago, 300 years ago. And from the existence of the modern economy, women have been marginalized from day one. So I never thought once that this is the responsibility. okay, women are in this problem, so this is the responsibility for women to come out of that problem.
Sure.
I realized that this is a problem that since men created this problem, so men have to be part of the equation,
Right.
or part of the
solving
solution,
it.
solving it. So that's where we said, okay, there is a problem. It needs to be resolved. Everyone needs to be in there, men, women, LGBTQ, wherever you're from. And we all need to come together with the bright minds to solve this problem.
Right, right. So you noticed this problem a long time ago, generally, the problem of the freedom of movement, as you would say. Right?
Exactly.
And then, but Uber, Uber had to probably come along and be like, give you an inspiration that, because rideshare didn't exist before all of that.
Right.
Suddenly it was an explosion, right?
So there was a big explosion in the gig economy. Uber did a wonderful job in coming up with the idea. But when ideas come, sometimes small nuances are being ignored about those ideas. So women market, children market, elderly market were completely ignored. I will give you an analogy. So if you put a couple of big boulders in a frame, if you box, you will see that because of the nature, the way the boulders are, they would leave some spaces in between. So there is no way for those boulders to change their shape to cover those gaps. Yeah. So those gaps would remain there for a very, very, very long time. So these are the gaps which I've been referring to: women, market, children, elderly, which other rideshare companies failed to address. So that's why we saw that there is a real opportunity for us, and we can probably solve some of the issues, if not all, but at least do our effort, do our best effort to try to solve those challenges. So at least we can say that we have done our part in this world.
Right. It's interesting you defined it as a gap, because for instance, when eBay came along, and they were big when I was going to college, if I were eBay, I would have approached the market more broadly, because auction is auction, right? It sort of applies more broadly, and the technology is the same. But Etsy came along afterwards as a second mover in the creative industry and raised a lot of money. It was very successful in a niche, largely because you don't need a bunch of generic auction sites either. Right. So could it just be that Uber did the sort of boil the ocean model, and because that model entails, it's almost the anti-niche, it's the opposite of niche. Mm-hmm. It's a do everything, but it can't provide the specific needs of that market, because it can't possibly focus on safety and security needs of like just women, elderly, and children, for example.
You're absolutely right. You referred to the right example. When eBay was there was no Amazon, right? Yeah. At that time, there was no Etsy. Yeah. eBay could have easily pivoted into those two markets and could have barred other two big players now from getting in. Or when Yahoo was there, they could have easily pivoted into Google model as well, but they didn't. When you become so big and you're trying, back to your analogy, boiling the ocean kind of analogy, you leave those spaces there. That's the best. That's the way the market acts all the time, since from day one. There is no perfect organization. I will give you an example of Whole Foods. When Whole Foods came out with organic, every store started opening the organic aisle, if you will. Yeah. They could have easily put Whole Foods out of business, but there was a market gap out there that couldn't be covered by the existing retailers. That's right. So hence Whole Foods came in and they took over that organic market. So when you look at the overall transportation market, there are players who are working at the bigger scale. You're looking at Didi in China, you're looking at Grab in East Asia, or you're looking at Uber globally, or you're looking at BlaBlaCar in Europe, or you're looking at Lyft over here with Uber, or you're looking at Ola in India, or Yandex in Russia. So when you're looking at these 5, 6, 8 big players, you would see that they're all operating in the same space without any differentiation. None of them is addressing those niche market gaps. So there is a significant room to do just that. Yeah. Actually, there's a Goldman Sachs study that takes the valuation or market cap on the transportation sector from $4 trillion to $7 trillion, but also puts $400 or $500 billion market cap on the niche market business as well, which is women, children, elderly, and so on and so forth. Yeah. And these bigger guys, is very hard for them to realize that there is something wrong. And even if they try to do it, the model is not set up. It's just like if you are a commercial air jet, you're set up for cheaper fare, more planes, more hubs, and so on and so forth. So if a private jet market comes in, you're not going to let go of your bigger Boeing 737 and start flying smaller jets or do both.
Right.
You're good at one thing and you would continue doing that because that's what your niche is.
Yeah, no doubt. When did you come to the U.S., by the way?
It's been 20 years.
20 years. Oh, 20 years.
20 years.
So did it ever occur to you that why the Pakistani government, for example, didn't try to solve the problem? That women were dependent on a male to get out and the availability of a vehicle and didn't solve, is it because it's not a capitalistic model? Because it would occur to a capitalistic system to not lock up, major consumers, right, of products and have them unable to move about and consume.
So number one, I'm going to say something political. I don't think that any government by definition is efficient anywhere in the world.
But what do we know as economics?
Exactly. So when you look at South Asian economies, then the government becomes even more inefficient. And if you look at the governments in South Asia or Southeast Asia in general, there is no public transportation segment at all. It's heavily missing.
No kidding.
So hardly anything other than the train and the airplanes and some buses routes that are still operating under private enterprise. There is nothing. So how you're moving millions or hundreds of millions of people, and you can YouTube it, you will see how people in India are stacked on top of the train, not just inside of the train, or like literally on top of the train.
Yeah, I noticed, I've seen pictures or videos of people on top of it. So what is that? What's up with that?
Because there is no transportation. So you want to go somewhere, train inside is fully packed, you can't even breathe. So you will end up on top of the train.
On top of the train.
On top of the train. Same way on top of the buses. So there is a huge gap in infrastructure side of it in that part of the world. So, and the resources, lack of resources. I mean, many of those countries are constantly fighting with each other. So most of the money goes into defense instead of well-being and development of the people. So guess
there's corruption too,
corruption
of course,
and so on and so forth. So these things heavily has a heavy price on the development of the human beings over there. So Pakistan being 220 million people, India being 1.3 billion, and Bangladesh between a couple of 100 million as well, you have more than 2 billion people, around 2 billion people sitting in just subcontinent alone.
Yeah, that's
so
true.
But hardly any infrastructure, hardly any services available. So market is ripe for development. Market is really, really ripe for development, especially when next door China is growing very, very fast.
So what was the impetus for you to come here to the States?
College? So I've been coming. I've been coming before.
Okay.
I've been coming to the U.S. before. I was working with my dad in Pakistan on traditional business, and tech sector was one of the area that my family introduced in Pakistan. And for that, I used to come to the U.S. and meet with people. And eventually, I decided that I enjoy living over here, so I would want to be here. I went to the university. Then later went to Harvard, did my master's in international relations, and finally made it home. So, some places suit you well, and some places don't. You've been around the world, so you can relate to that better. That some places you go, you were like, I love it, but thank you, I'm out. And some places you want to call home. I mean, you yourself are Bostonian, but you chose this beautiful LA as your home. So I mean, it changes.
Until they raise the taxes a little more, and then you never know.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I mean, I feel like your life takes you to different journeys. There's a more spiritual aspect to your life than just simply binary decisions that you make. That this country or this region is better than this, or let me go there and I will be very successful because I will do X, Y, Z. It doesn't happen. There is a very big spiritual element to your growth, which is that you can be anywhere, but if it's written that if you go to the place and that place works for you, or the plan works for you, it may not work for you in the same way in another place. So you end up staying there, right?
Yeah. Syed, I noticed you use the word spiritual. We have a spiritual bottom line at Exemplar.
Okay.
So when you use the word spiritual, and it didn't prompt it, so I was intrigued by your use of it. What do you mean?
I simply mean that, look, we work very hard, and we're driven by a certain need of doing more. That need may be materialistic, or that need may be non-materialistic. Many people, they forget that in the pursuit of that materialistic world or materialistic goal, they lost one big part of what I call the spirituality, your aspect of being content with who you are and how you live and how you present yourself, and that in that race, by the end of the time when you are able to look back, it's way too late.
Yeah,
right?
Of
And
course.
you lose a whole lot of moments, whole lot of areas, whole lot of is a big aspect of life other than making money. Money making is great. You can do whatever you want to do, but it's only a mean to go to a goal. But if you lose the goal toward while pursuing the mean, then that's a wrong equation completely.
Well, you had asked me earlier before the show about what the end goal is. We were just talking about business, and I said, well, the journey is a bit of the journey is really a destination.
Right.
And part of it was tied to that. But when did you get attuned to all this in the sort of arc of your professional life about the spiritual concept?
It's a great question. So I always say that when I was very young, I was probably in 8th grade or 9th grade, my dad asked me once, how long you want to live? And I was very surprised on that question. And I said, well, you live 75, 85, 95. I will live however I want to live. And he said, okay, let me tell you something. If you live for yourself, you die when you die. If you live for your family, you die when your family dies. If you live for your community, you die when your community dies. If you live for your country, you die when your country dies. And if you live for humanity, you die when the humanity dies. So let me ask you again, how long you want to live? So that put everything in perspective. Like, okay, are you going to live for yourself alone?
Yeah.
Or you're going to live for 6 or 7 people around you, or 60 or 70 people around you, or 60,000 people around you, or 6 million, or 6 billion.
Yeah.
So then I realized that life has to have a better purpose.
Yeah.
Improving the life of others, that's one, through products or services or whatever that you can. And making a difference in this world. So when you are 75 and 85, money is not the only thing that you say, I have done it. But you can say that you have made a dent in this world in a positive way, where you changed the things, or at least tried making that change. So you didn't push it down to the next generation. You improved everything for them, and that should be a goal for everyone in this world. So whoever the young people are coming out and they are trying to start their business or job or whatnot, we forget in this busy life that there should be a bigger goal that we should set for ourselves, which should be bigger than us, which should be bigger than one person sitting in an office.
I think, Syed, we've all met people that are rich and miserable, right?
Yeah.
How many people do you need to meet before you just don't? The reason we are, we evolve. We're not monkeys today because we evolved, right? And like we don't need more of those people on the earth, of course. And I think there's a lot of people who might have said that, well, I'll get wealthy first. I'll sort of grin and bear it. I'll sort of shut my eyes and go through it. And I think what they miss is that some of the most valuable parts and times of your life that you can't get back, or times to meet your perfect partner or soulmate, which might have just been in a window that you just weren't looking.
Exactly.
Many people say you can't get it back.
Many people say, "Oh, I don't want to get married until I reach there. I don't want to I don't want to have kids until I reach there.
Right.
I don't want to do this until I reach there." And once they reach that point, then they ask for more.
Yeah.
They're never happy. Yeah. They're never happy. Yeah. If you're in pursuit of happiness, that is in you right away, there and then. You don't need to go out and work extremely hard to achieve just that. Yeah. As long as you can sleep without taking a pill. Look at how many rich people out there. They probably take 10 different pills.
Oh, sure.
See 10 different doctors before they even go to bed. If you can sleep, have a sound sleep, wake up healthy, have a healthy life, being grateful who you are, and look around at who you are missing in your equation in your life. That's where the real value lies, and you need to find that value. And money only allows you to amplify on that value, if you will. Other than that, if you will find many people who have not as much money as other people have, but they're the happiest people on the face of this earth as well.
Yeah.
So you have to look at from a different perspective that, and again, not everybody, and I understand, like I always say, all humans are like your fingers, not everyone is equal.
Yeah.
So, but everyone has a purpose.
Yeah.
So you need to know your purpose.
I haven't heard it put that way, by the way.
Yeah.
A finger analogy to.
Yeah.
That's
I mean,
great.
like fingers
great.
make one hand. Not
That's
everyone
right.
is equal, but everything has a purpose in
It's
it.
really simple to explain to a kid, I think.
Exactly. Exactly. So how you can understand your purpose in that global universe, in this universe, and be able to deliver on that purpose by the end of the day. Because look outside. I mean, you will find many people walking around, breathing, laughing, enjoying nice meal, driving around, doing things, which is great. But do they understand the real purpose that they are there for? And the real purpose is, frankly, to me at least, is to help others. You can be all spiritual, may go to church and may go to mosque and synagogue and whatnot, but if you're not helping the humanity, you're just losing everything. The essence of your whatever faith you are from is around how you make that change. So from Safr perspective, I realized that we talk about empowering families. I realized that women are more communal in nature. Men are soloist. If you empower a woman, you're empowering a family. So the children and everybody around that.
That's right.
How you can do that? If you're not letting her have a freedom of movement because of the lack of safety, how she's going to work hard, how she's going to go out, how she's going to move out, how can she contribute to the economy of this country, of their country? They can't. And if you marginalize 58% of the world's population this way, look at the world. Men ruled the world for centuries. Look at the state.
Look what we did, huh?
Look what we did. Might as well give women like 10 years, and you're probably they will count to 3, and the whole world would be just okay.
That's great.
So I mean, that's the best part of it. We have we all have a responsibility into this. That how minorities these days, we're talking about African American side of it, Black communities or LGBTQ communities. Everybody feels threatened. Why? When they should be feeling safe to begin. That's the one basic necessity for every family. We all as people, what's our first priority? Being safe, number one, because if you're safe, then you can think about healthcare. That's your life is number one. And then you think about education. Then you think about anything else. First, you need to define safety. That's why we build homes, to remain safe. Sure. So if people are not feeling safe during their movement, then that's a really, really, really big threat to their rights.
Yeah, no doubt.
So and that's not adding up to the confidence in any society, in the GDP of any society, and that's not helping any growth in that society. So we believe that Safr could be a really good catalyst for that.
So you're operational right now, right?
We are in Central Florida. We are opening up in Texas, in Indiana side of it, in Mid-Atlantic region. So we're growing fast. And
you put a lot into it since we met.
Whole lot of time, whole lot of effort.
Yeah.
We believe that women make 2/3 of the decisions in the household, according to Pew Research. Either they are directly involved in the decision making or they indirectly. So we feel like the target market that we are going after has a lot more clout when it comes to children market.
Where the man makes the decision, and it's really her idea, but she made it think it was his idea, right? Yeah.
Any good household would understand that.
Yes, of course.
Without women involvement, that decision hold no value.
I totally get it.
Exactly. So unless you're out for a fight.
Yeah.
So we feel like we have a really good platform that can potentially allow us to go into different areas and turn Safr into a mega app, which is what we've been working on.
Okay. And Syed, you have family, right?
Yeah, I do.
So what's your family makeup? Brothers, sisters,
kids? We are 3 brothers and a sister. We're spread all over the world now.
Okay.
I mean, you grew up in one location.
Yeah.
And then you don't know where anyone is going to be by the end of the day. And you grow up seeing each other every single day, every single moment. And then it takes years before you see somebody. Yeah. It's unfortunate, but it is what it is. And Zoom is probably your some other video conferencing platforms are left the only platform through which you can communicate.
Yeah.
And with COVID-19, it has gone worse because now people can't even travel.
Yeah.
On that side. So I mean, when you see this world, the way that it's changing, the people are moving from one place to the other place, and so on and so forth. Transportation is the hub in this whole thing. And we feel like with Safr and our artificial intelligence platform called Deborah, we can be at the forefront of that change.
So tell me about this, Deborah. You mentioned the artificial intelligence. Where does that play into a rideshare business?
So idea of Deborah was it started with a basic need that how we can monitor all the rides and how we can make sure that the women feel safe, both drivers as riders and riders. And it started growing from there, that how we can make her intelligent, where she can predict violence or predict anything and can inform us some sort of a possibility to flag some rides before they happen. Yeah. From there on, we started thinking about how we can use Deborah to understand people's needs and how we can become extension of people's lifestyle. So you may need to pick up your dry cleaning, laundry, grocery. You need to pick up your kids, drop them to school or extracurricular. 1 out of 6 kids in the United States lose a month of school. Actually, 1 out of 10 kids lose a month of school because of lack of transportation. So how can we make sure that there's a transport available for them? How we can make sure that they're available for the extracurricular activities? How we can make sure that elderly can get to the doctor's appointment on time?
Right.
So Deborah comes into play behind this, and how we can present right content to our riders and drivers so they can make more informed decisions. And that's where this whole idea of Deborah came out, and it's growing very fast. And the goal is that it becomes the platform, if you will, eventually, so other women entrepreneurs around the world can benefit from Deborah and can start their business on the platform that we build.
Yeah, that's great. So tell me about your inspirations growing up. It sounds like your father was a businessman.
He was, and he is. So
and it sounds like he's instilled some wisdom in you too, with his finger analogy and other things.
He has some sage ideas or stories about just about everything that you do in life. So I grew up in a business and political family in Pakistan. So politics was everywhere in the house. Dinner table conversations were around business or politics. At the national level, at the global level, behind the scene, what's happening, in front of the screen, what's happening, how things happen, why they happen, the way they happen, why you should not take things on the face value, because when people are saying things, that's exactly not happening. When some prime minister would say, "Nobody can take me down," that means that he's been taken down.
That's funny.
So that's why it took him to that point that he has to say that nobody can do that. He's sending a message to somebody. That means somebody is doing something. So things like that was exposed to me personally at very early age. I got involved in my dad's business very early age. I started helping him out a lot from 6th, 7th grade, 8th grade. From just filing his cabinets or office or something like that, even serving tea to his friends, but listening to those conversations and figuring out, okay, what makes a decision bad and good. So yeah, I mean, he is a wise man, I would say, and he has a lot of good wisdom. Like, I'll give you a small thing that, if one day I told him, I said, "Man, Dad, these people don't like me at all." And he said, "Congratulations." And I said, "Why?" And he said, "You became somebody from nobody."
Right, nobody can.
He said nobody would care about nobody.
Right, exactly.
But if you are somebody, then people will have an opinion about you, good or bad. Right. So congratulations on that part. And if ever I got into a bad business deal or lost some money, so he would ask me that, "What did you learn out of that?" So I would say, "I learned this and this and this." And he said, "Money well spent." So I'm like, "Why would you, aren't you mad?" He said, "Well, you can't learn these lessons from an MBA class. So this is money well spent. Otherwise, you will do the same mistake and come up with the same conclusion." Right. So as long as you learned your lessons, no worries.
Did you go to university? You went to Harvard, right?
I went to Harvard.
Okay. And then
I have an MBA before.
Okay.
And I have masters in economics and finance before.
Okay.
So I have 3 masters.
Okay.
If you will.
So overeducated.
well over educated,
Yeah,
lifelong student. if you will.
Exactly. I love that. No, exactly.
Lifelong student, never left the school.
Yeah. Well, as apparently a connoisseur of education, how do you weigh the impacts of comparing your real life skills and being in the game with the institutionalized education system in terms of what's paying off more for you in the real world?
That's a good question, actually. I don't think education, I'm a strong believer education is for yourself. Education, if you take a definition of marketing and try to apply in real life, you will hardly find 10 examples where you can actually do that. Or product placement or this and this. I've seen one of the most successful businessmen who never went to any MBA class or BBA class or anything. It's just common sense by the end of the day, right? If you can package it together and call it MBA or BBA, that's a total different thing. But it's all common sense. So in life, I'm a firm believer that you need to have certain skills, math, sciences, understanding. So these give you logic, that gives you reasoning, that gives you basic understanding of reading and understanding. You're a lawyer. If you take the legal jargon out and it's just put in simple English, people understand that. But as long as if you put legal jargon in there, that becomes very difficult, where you say whereas, wherein, whereby, therein, and all that.
Normally they bill by the hour, so they have incentive to mystify it.
Exactly. So I always believe that majority of your life learning comes from real life. Where you get yourself skinned, you get yourself beaten, you get yourself, the school of hard knocks, if you will. That teaches you a lot more than any school can ever be or any book can ever be. Reading, learning from other people's experiences, sitting with the smart people like yourself, you learn a whole lot more. So school is good to groom you into whatever personality you want to be. You can go to music school, be a great musician like yourself, and can be a great lawyer on the sideline. So it's not like you need to be like throughout from kindergarten learning law to become the great lawyer.
That's right. That's true.
You don't. Or you need to have a great reasoning from kindergarten to make sure that, hey, you're a great litigation lawyer. Or you've been accounting with number great with money from day one, and now you're an accountant. It's not. Many people who do those certifications, they do that because that's where the aptitude is, not because they just went to school and got accounting or finance degree. I mean, you and I studied economics, but how much of an economics we actually use? We have a better understanding of the economy, but that's pretty much it. We can see 2 or 3 big words from macro and microeconomics.
Yeah, that's right. We can see where it's relevant in daily life, but it's still, doing it, and you learn a lot by the ups, but mostly the downs.
Exactly. So you learn your stripes from the life.
Well, you said something about sort of taking your, the school of hard knocks, right? Taking your hits. One of our other CEOs on the show described it as you got to get jumped in the gang of business. You're gonna get beat up.
So I always say that success is never a good teacher. Failure is always the best teacher. So fail and fail fast and fail more, and you will learn a whole lot more. Pain is the best teacher. If you now back to spirituality, if you take out if you talk about Moses and Jesus and Muhammad and many others, none of those big guys, those we still remember now, they went through tremendous amount of pain, tremendous,
and they didn't shy away from it.
And they didn't shy away; they embraced it.
That's right.
And once they did it, guess what? They came up with the best teaching in the world.
Yes.
And billions of people are out there following them. So I always say that always remember to learn from your mistake, be humble, because mistakes make you humble. And they make you humble, they ground you right away. And with that grounding is very important for you as a human to remain very close to the reality that no matter you can be the king of the world or whatnot, by the end of the day, you're still human. And you're part of the same human being around the world, which people forget, some of them. But we all know. I mean, this is very important for the real, genuine people. Those, and I've met with CEOs, frankly, of big companies, those who would not shy away from connecting you with the right folks, helping you out, because they know what the struggle is like, because they've been through that struggle. And there are many people you would reach out and they would say, well, I don't know you, so I'm not going to do it. So the world is full of interesting folks. That's what I would say.
So, Syed, in some countries and cultures, failure is a stain, and it's considered shameful in society. In certain parts of Asian culture and others, it's that way, but not here. And what is it like where you're from?
So in Pakistan, overall, yes. If you are from middle class, lower middle class, you're expected to do certain things, become a doctor or an engineer, go join government service, whatnot. Business is not widely recommended. So if you're a business owner or you are a startup guy, that means you're hungry. That makes the capacity of US to embrace people and embrace their mistakes and allow them to do mistakes and still say, okay, you have a second chance. Get up, do it. That makes this country the most beautiful and powerful country in the world. That makes it great. Because otherwise, it's just, I was talking to somebody and I said, if you go to France, you're French or non-French. You go to Germany, you go to German, non-German.
That's right.
You go to India, you're Hindu or non-Hindu.
Even if you become a citizen, you don't become French.
You don't become French.
France. In the U.S. is the only country in the world that you can come here and become American.
You don't need to be citizen. You don't need to have a citizenship.
That's right.
You become an American because America is a system that embraces all backgrounds.
That's right.
With equal rights, with equal warmth, and allows them the equal opportunity, and then helps them to get up again. If they fall, okay, do it again. Let's do it again. So it helps them to move forward, and that's why you will see people over here. It is a funny story. I mean, I was talking to someone, and they said in Russian School of Math, they said do not fail. In our school, they say fail, you will learn something. Which one is true? So see that the different cultures. So here in the United States, why entrepreneurship thrives, why the United States leads the world. All those Singaporeans are best at mathematics, best at science, are really, really good.
Oh, yeah.
But have you ever heard anything invented out of Singapore that became the global leader? None. US, why? Because it allows people to think wild and supports that wild thinking. Nobody says, oh, you're coming up with a space shuttle that can launch vertical, or that can land vertically, right?
Right. Not a
no,
chance.
this is stupid.
Right.
No. There you go, done. Or nobody said, okay, you can look at the flying machine that can do this, or you can come up with an algorithm that becomes Google, or you can do this. Everybody supports you. There is a support system. Of course, you're going to have naysayers over here as well. We have all humans. But there is a support system available in this beautiful country which allows people to flourish. And that's what creates entrepreneurship and growth and leadership in the world. And that's not there anywhere in the world. I mean, I worked in Asia, I worked in Middle East, I worked in Europe, Caribbean here. Nowhere else you will find that part. Of course, there are going to be people who are not going to be perfect, but that's okay. That's everywhere. And we don't want, imagine if all the people become same, it becomes such a boring world, right?
Yeah.
So we've got to make sure there's the diversity there.
Well, you're an entrepreneur through and through, from what I know. Because you've got a lot going on,
right? And
as do I. Which is this is why I sort of get you in that regard. Tell us something that you've taken along the way. You gave your dad's finger analogy about maybe not equal, but they all have a unique purpose,
right?
And but what's yours? You must have boiled the sap of life into some syrup. Right.
I don't think so much.
Really?
But look, like you're doing Exemplar with Exemplar, amazing stuff, where you're trying to put the services together which makes sense for the client. This is the first time I've heard that somebody is doing this that makes sense for the end client, not for themselves, not self-serving purpose, but altruistic motive is there embedded into that. And you said that you set up a company which actually focuses on other bottom lines other than just profitability. That's a change. That's a huge change. Talk to companies. Profitability, EBITDA. Nobody talks about other stuff. So when you look at these things, that's the essence, frankly. That's really the essence. I mean, whatever I'm working on or things that I've been engaged in, it has to have an essence. If it doesn't have an essence, it doesn't have a spirit, then you're just living a life. You're basically spending your time until your time is over.
Yeah.
And I hate doing that part.
So what you mean is that it has to have an essence beyond just profit, just a financial motive.
So profit is great, right?
Because
so
that gives it a spirit.
Exactly. So
yeah.
You want to know that something has been changed because of your effort positively. And that's very important.
Like a legacy.
Yeah, like a legacy.
Yeah.
And and again, we are all very small number in the 6 billion population around the world. So if we do a little by little thing on our own, it adds up very quickly. It adds up significantly. So like what you are doing, what we are doing, what somebody else is doing, how we can put those pieces of the puzzles together and then create something which is bigger, which is more beneficial to people. And as entrepreneurship thrives in this country or anywhere in the world, then how many people do you think would be able to provide bread for their families?
No doubt.
Resources for their families.
Yeah.
So you don't have to give them just chickens and cows to make sure that they have a family.
That's right.
You can give them other resources and empower them, which allows them to grow even further. So, so it's a small little effort.
Well, Syed, I've been told I don't sleep very much. But that's, but people have said they've asked me sometimes why, why do so much? Because you could look at my life or I could look at yours, and certainly from the looks of it, we both keep very busy schedules.
Right.
We don't have to do this much, but there's almost a sense of, I don't know if it's calling, but there's a lot of work to do to live up to the essence of it, that if it wasn't there, if there wasn't another bottom line, then our work would be done when we've made the money, wouldn't it?
So this is a great question. So there was a poem in third grade. I was a debater in third and fourth and all words. So there was a poem stanza that I still remember and that stuck with me, which one of the lines said that the nations are built by people, something like that. Nations are built by people who work while others sleep, who struggle and bleed while others play. Mm-hmm. So not everyone, and again, back to my dad's analogy, he says in front of a cart, if you put 4 horses or 5 horses, not all horses are going to run the same way. There's going to be one horse who's going to be pulling more than the rest of the horses. So don't compare yourself as others. If everyone everyone needs to do it. But if nobody else is doing it, that doesn't give you a pass if you have a capability not to do such a thing. So I will give you another analogy that, once there was a lion and he realizes that, God gives food to everybody, even that poor fox who is sick. So that lion stops hunting and he goes out and stays in the jungle. 1 day passed by, 2 days passed by, 3 days passed by, nobody gives him any food. So he's like, okay, God, that poor fox that was hurt was getting food somehow. I'm not getting. And the God said, you are a lion. You could have hunted and you didn't do anything. That was a sick fox.
Yeah,
so when there are people in this world who are able to go out and hunt and can do things and can do better, then they need to understand their calling, like you said.
Yeah. And
they need to actually go and deliver on that calling. Otherwise, they just lose the time, which is precious, which you mentioned that sleep less. They lose the time that's passing by at that point.
Similar to the analogy you mentioned just now about that, when I founded Exemplar 15 years ago, somebody had asked me why, because I had, again, overeducated, too much school, like you could go anywhere, or that sort of thing. Why do you have to go and sort of turn the whole services industry on its head? And my instinctive answer, which didn't seem all that spiritual at the time, it was just an instinctive response, was because I can, I must.
Yeah.
And that only later occurred to me that was the definition of calling.
Yeah.
I was just in touch with it. And, it's just, there's a spiritual level of a knowing of where you need to be and what you need to be doing. And when you find it, it can almost flow out of you as this is what I need to be doing. It's just like the fingers. You know what your purpose is.
Exactly.
You know which one you are.
So
You know?
I met one of the smartest folks in my life, some of the very smart folks. Sometimes they don't understand their calling. Sometimes they underestimate their calling. Sometimes they simply ignore their calling.
That's right.
And I would say that's a crime, because they could have contributed so much to humanity, so much to people, that it's not even funny. So like you, like others who are out there who are trying to make the change, trying to do things better than before, it's a hard path.
Sure.
It's a very, very,
Yeah.
very hard path.
Yeah.
And that makes the difference between human and an animal. If an animal would see a hurdle, let's say a bush with full of thorns on it on its way,
It's going to go around.
it will go around.
Yeah.
But human will make its way through that thing. So that's where we feel like humanity has been able to improve itself over centuries. Otherwise, we would still be living in cave, right? If the model
That's
would not
right.
have changed,
Absolutely.
then we would have like horses outside, not cars, not Teslas, not flying machines or airplanes or anything around that. We improve because some people in mankind, in humankind, they think that they have a calling and they work towards it. They dedicate their lives for that, and things get improved. They may not look like as big at that point, but once you start adding on top of it the knowledge and the accomplishments, it's a massive ocean of change at that point.
So have you gotten feedback from people about Safr, or particularly from your demographic of the women drivers or women passengers, about the mission?
Yeah, so this is a great question. So we have more than 13,000 drivers on our platform. 96% of them are women.
Wow.
60% never drove for Uber and Lyft, which is big. Our riders, same way, they're willing to pay more, they're willing to stick around, they feel more comfortable. So we're getting very positive feedback from both sides of the equation. Then we have supporters, investors, or board of advisors, or other people in the community who want us to grow as fast as we can to be present in the community. But again, of course, we are looking for everyone's help in the community to see that how we can get to the next step.
It's been great to see how you've developed it. What are the key differences in Safr in terms of, is it the demographic of the drivers? Is it background checks? Is it, what are the elements, the alchemy? What makes it safer?
So combination of many.
Yeah.
So from operational side, again, business model is women, more women. So by the virtue of statistics, 1 out of 10 assault happened by women, 1 out of 100 sexual assault happened by women. So you reduce the probability of any assault or any sexual assault. Second, we do background checks, thorough background checks. Third, we meet with every single driver in person. That's the most important thing.
Wow. You meet them all?
I don't meet them all,
No,
but we accompany overall. We meet them all.
Amazing.
And we interview them, we check their cars. And the most important thing on the operation side is we make sure that we stay in touch with our drivers. So we have weekly or monthly meet and greet, and we invite our drivers, we talk to them, and so they can feel that they're part of a sisterhood, they're part of a community. So again, I mentioned that women are more communal in nature. So they bring the other friends and family members to those mixers, if you will, or meetups, and that allows us to get more drivers on board, more riders on board, and we get ambassadors that way on our platform, which nobody else does. Then we have within our app features like gender match, which if you are a woman, you want to ride with women or drive for women, you can do that part. We have a color match feature. We have a trusted driver feature, so you can request the same driver over and over again.
Oh, nice.
And then we have a couple of other features behind the scene that makes us safer.
That's great. That's great.
Yeah.
Well, Syed, you've been great. Let's get real for a minute. Talk about what's going on in the world, because it's crazy. But it's also not contextualized, right? Because we complain. There's a lot of people complaining about what's happening here in the United States right now, politically, et cetera. But for those that are more traveled, you kind of can contextualize it in terms of everything that's going on. But what are the things that come to your mind about what's happening today?
So I read a book called World on Fire by Amy Chua like 20 years ago. And the book was talking about
World on Fire? Is that what it was?
The World on Fire.
And that's what they thought 20 years ago.
20
Yeah,
years
they
ago.
only knew, right?
So she talked about that the world is going to go towards nationalism more. and regionalism than more global. She was against the globalization part of it, and people are going to blame globalization for whatever miseries that they're in. Look at that. Look at now. Every single country is going nationalistic. You talk about U.S., you talk about Venezuela, you talk about England, you talk about Pakistan, India, China. You talk about any country, there is a huge nationalistic movement going on around the world. And people are moving away from the globalization part of it. Right now with COVID-19, we realize that in the absence of supply chain, the U.S. has zero PPE capability to begin with.
That's right.
U.S. doesn't even have a toilet paper capability to begin with. So how do you actually create a business model within a country which doesn't become a matter of national security? This became a national security problem when a country cannot produce its own PPE.
Well, you did it. You studied international relations, and you've been sort of learned in the areas of the political environment. Because in the U.S., people who don't see the big picture of the system at work would tend to think that a nationalistic perspective is xenophobic. But in fact, there's a global movement towards a more nationalistic perspective, actually.
This is everywhere. This is everywhere. Not just you. U.S. is not alone. U.S. is probably one of the last one that came about. When you look at NAFTA, North Atlantic Free Trade Agreement, or when you look at CAFTA, or you look at the Paris Climate Agreement, or when you look at ASEAN agreement from East Asian countries, or SAARC agreements, all of them were looking for regional ties. But everything got faded away under WTO and the GATT side of it. But now everyone is going back to the basis that if they want to have an agreement, then let's have agreement with the neighbors and let's have trade within the neighbors. So it's easier to manage the supply chain that way. So nationalistic movements are very, very strong as we speak in every country. You talk French, you talk about Germans, Chinese, everywhere you see there's a big nationalistic movement going on. In some countries they turn into xenophobic, some countries they're not. So as long as we here in the United States not turn into xenophobic, but still remain nationalistic, that okay, our first duty is to make sure that things get better for the people. It's unfortunate when we go out and we see so many homeless people. They're Americans. They're all citizens. They have a vote.
That's true.
And they're on the street of one of the richest country in the world, in the history of mankind.
I know.
How does that happen? So
we see them under bridges and stuff, and yet sometimes we don't treat our own very well relative to foreigners.
Exactly. The amount of money we spend on wars and protecting other countries. Why can't we protect the healthcare of our own people? Why can't we make education available for those people? Why can't we make more? I mean, it's the most powerful
basic
country.
housing,
some basic thing.
I mean, it's just baffling to me.
Nobody's asking for a casa,
right?
They
don't need 500 square feet. But how about some square feet? How about a few? How about enough to sleep and have a bathroom and a kitchen area or something?
So I'm big on global side of it. There has to be a global side and all that. But I'm also big on that a country's responsibility is of its citizens. And once you engage, and that's why from a very long time, I've been focusing on the 2Ds, defense versus development. And I would rather pick development than defense. A weak nation cannot be defended. But a strong nation can easily be defended. So how a nation becomes strong? By developing its own people, the manforce. You can build factories or you can build big buildings, but if people are not happy, that building is empty.
That's true.
I'm a big supporter of that every country in this world needs to refocus, rethink their priorities, and instead of building the weapons and how to think about how we can do more influence on other country, how we can get into the other country, focus on the people and improve the lives of those people. I think that would be better.
Well, as somebody who's into this, the political side, isn't it true that the different styles, from communism to socialism to capitalism, or whatever the styles are, democracies. I mean, ultimately, the purpose of those systems is still somehow supposedly to better the people, except they fail.
Yeah.
All of them fail. You know, they either become corrupted, or they're horribly inefficient, or they're just not doing it. I don't know. You know, it's a interesting statement.
It's the implementation, right? So I don't think that any system in itself says that, okay, let's make these people this way. Let's create poverty. Let's do this part. Nobody does that. But it's the powers to be who come out of that system and sit on top. They are making the decision how those things needs to happen. Like if you go back to religion, no religion would say thou shalt steal. But then it's the individual person, or thou shalt hurt any other person. But it's the individual decision how they politicize their action behind the religion, or behind the political doctrine, or behind an economic system to inflict pain on others. Yeah. So we can't blame on these ideologies, but we have to blame ourselves as humans that we are doing it. And many people who are quiet, they are implicit in this whole situation.
For sure.
Either you talk, at least you can talk, or make a change. But staying quiet in the environment where we all can eat a great food, and many people are going out hungry, or homeless, or happy. They're not happy at all. I think this is unfortunate. Especially, I will understand if it's a country which is a developing country, which has no GDP, no exports, no import, nothing, no money. Makes sense.
So isn't it a bit of a call to activism, in that the people, regardless of the party and what you're supporting, that sitting idle or being on the sidelines, it's almost like the people have to demand to be represented, not just expect the system to represent it.
So, I mean, again, I come from the political side of it, and we all know what politics means, right? Many blood-sucking parasites in Latin. So
that's great. That's great.
So poly and tics. So I haven't met a single politician who's truly altruistic in nature. Yeah. What makes you choose that, hey, I want to be a senator, or I want to be a congressman, or I want to be a president? If it's not vanity.
Of course, what's left, right? It's not pay. And then if
nobody's getting paid.
And then if you take away the lobbying path afterwards, which is what's corrupting the system, then they've lost a big part of their income at the end of the rainbow. What's left?
So they say in South Asia, a living elephant is worth $1 million, dead $1.5 million. So if you're a politician, you're worth $1 million, but once you are ex-politician or ex-senator, then you're worth $1.5 million because lobbying comes in.
Yep.
If you take those elements out and the vanity part out, and makes it a true service, if you will, why would you go for even, what's the catch, what's the attraction in that profession, if you will, in that path? Very few people, very, very few people would go towards that. I don't understand that anyone would be willing to say that, hey, I want to be a politician because I want to help people. And by the way, I won't take salary. Nobody should call me senator.
That's right.
I will live whatever I can live. I don't want to be part of I'm sure there are people. I'm sure there are people. They're nice people also. But unfortunately, it's the way we select our leaders, right? So we send the people who are very self-serving in many ways.
Of course.
Yeah.
Well, so doesn't that necessitate the people being a bit more attentive to politics and attentive to demanding accountability? Because otherwise you have to have systemic change altogether to get accountability.
So unfortunately, there are so many things are happening in this world that even when people get fixated to one issue, and then right away some bigger issue comes up tomorrow morning. And then they get to that. And then forget about what happened yesterday.
Yes, that's where...
And the third day.
It's even worse now than it ever was before,
exactly.
Right?
So every single day, like...
Big issues come up.
Okay, really? That one was a small one. Let's go to the next one.
I think they even manufacture issues now. They have a big plant just to...
just to do that part. So, I mean, people, and people, frankly, common people are very busy trying to make the ends meet.
Yes.
And for them, they take it for granted that, okay, I'm giving a vote to somebody.
Yeah.
Somebody would show some sympathy and would do something, or empathy, and would do something about that system and make it better. But unfortunately, people don't. Once they become who they want to become, senator, congressperson, or president, or whatnot, nobody cares.
Yeah.
That's globally. That's not U.S. or Pakistan or India. That's globally. I haven't met a single guy. They're great people in this world. They're great people. But then the world is sustained by those great people. You would not even know their names, and they are doing a lot more for other people than
through non-political means.
Through non-political means.
That's right.
Through non-political means, and you won't even know that John Doe or Jane Doe was involved in this.
Right. There's a saying: if you give to charity and more than one or two people know about it, you did it for the wrong reasons.
You did it for the wrong reason.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's very important that, and I strongly believe that the world is going the way it's going in the right, a little bit in the right direction because of those people. It's sustained by those people. If you take those people out,
right. Much worse world.
Much
right?
worse world.
So doesn't it? It sounds to me like what we're talking about here is that we can change the world, but the mechanism to do that probably isn't going to be government. It's going to be private action.
It's always the private action.
Yeah.
It's always. Again, we talked about government by definition is inefficient. So where does the efficiency come from? Private enterprise.
Yeah.
So private enterprise individuals need to take charge and cover that gap and gulf and move in and do the right things. And there are many good people. There are many good people out there who are doing amazing job to help help the people here in the U.S., in Africa, in Asia, everywhere in the world. And we need a lot more than that.
It seems to me that even in for-profit businesses, doing so with multiple bottom lines would help.
Oh yes, definitely. Like you were doing with Exemplar, it's very important that every single for-profit needs to understand that the bigger guys, those who have billions and trillions of dollars under the assets, they need to realize that there are other bottom lines as well, other than just shareholder value. And how can they provide that bottom line? And that's a realization. I think that's a wake-up call. I mean, probably COVID-19 could be one of the stimulus for that wake-up call, that people could realize that there is an enemy, a common enemy to all the mankind, regardless of the background, regardless of the color, regardless of the age, regardless of the wealth. So why don't we come together just with one single thing? I mean, I was talking to someone and I said, probably COVID-19 gave people a break, that they could realize that they have a family. They could realize that they have kids. They have mom and dad. They have somebody else. They could realize that there are other people out there, and there is a common enemy to mankind, to humankind, and they can all work together. But unfortunately, many of us started fighting. Where the virus is from? Who brought the virus? Right. Well, we would come to that, but let's try to resolve it together. When you're in crisis, you don't point fingers. When you're in crisis, you solve the crisis.
Solve the problem. Yeah.
And then you figure out where the problem came from.
That's right.
But you don't just start blaming each other, and then it's a challenge to mankind.
Sure is.
So we have to come out of the challenge as a human race.
When we were talking about your company, we were talking about scaling culture and shaping culture. And you were explaining some of the benefits you gave to your people and the food, and if they needed furniture or whatever they needed. Sometimes they needed a loan.
It's important. So if you're not treating our people around us as us, then that's where we have a big disconnect. Big disconnect. I've been fortunate to have a great team, really great team. I consider them a family. I actually spend more time with them of my day,
of course,
than I do with my family. So they're my work family, if you will, and I highly respect them for that. And I try to do whatever I can, and at my smallest capacity possible. But there are people with a lot more capacity than I have.
No doubt.
And in the end, we all don't realize that none of it is going to go down the grave. And you don't want to have enough or too much, where your biggest challenge becomes that your children becomes more corrupted and would lose the purpose of their life. And I haven't seen a single enterprise that remained forever. Otherwise, Pharaoh's enterprise would have been still in existence, right?
For sure.
It's not there. So how can we, if we realize that part of it, it makes our life much simpler. Whatever we're doing is to create a better lifestyle and to help others.
Yeah.
I would strongly urge a formula for everyone, all of your listeners and watchers, that whatever you do, put 1/10 or 1/20 of your business towards charity. Whatever you earn from monthly basis, just give it out. Just give it out. And you will find that how many people you're going to be helping with that, even if it's $1, or that makes $1 or $2. That would change a lot of people's lives. And that would create a better human race going forward, not the materialistic human race, which is just focused on one bottom line, which is financial gain.
Yeah, I agree with you. As an economics guy, we'd always say, because there's criticisms of capitalism, that capitalism started with a Protestant ethic, actually, that's been attempted to being removed or separated from what it essentially was. And it's actually sort of corrupted its purpose. And then you have other elements like labor theory and Karl Marxism and all of that other stuff that really is not capitalism, what capitalism is about either. But I'd always said that the challenge isn't that most of the wealth is held in a fewer amount of households or persons in the world. The problem is it's in the wrong people's hands.
If it gets distributed.
If it got up to the hands of people that were less like J.P. Morgan, and more good to great type companies, people who care for a living, then eventually it would be more distributed because those people's missions themselves would distribute it.
Exactly. So if you see the people who are hoarding the cash or hoarding the resources and not realizing that they will actually grow more if other people have part of those resources.
That's right.
It's the way the world works. They need to realize that part, especially now more than ever that they have to look into this. I think it was a pause from this world that everybody should be just quiet. That's why we are having a mask now. Talking too much. Go back to the basics. Give a break to environment. Give a break to people around. Go back to your families and see what you're missing. And then in 21st century, do you want to really continue on that path forever? Or you want to have a different priorities for yourself? So each one of us has to make a decision accordingly. Many of us see that, okay, oh no, we achieved this target. We need to have a higher target. We need to have a higher target. That means you are basically an unhappy person to begin with.
Never getting there. You're never going to get there. That's
like somebody said that, like if you're sitting alone and you're getting bored, then you're in a bad company. So you're basically yourself is bored. So how you make yourself more fruitful for others is what we all need to look at. And as a human race, it's very important. And not just within the United States. I think a country that's more wealthy than others or more resourceful than others has a responsibility for the others. At least open the resources for them so they can do better. Imagine if Africa opens up and the GDP goes up significantly higher. Which products are they going to consume? American products.
Of course.
So now your enterprise even scale even further. So you empower them to consume your products at that point.
Let me ask you one last topic was about environmental issues. Because we were talking about this briefly. So the Paris Climate Accord and everything. And it occurred to me that we were talking about poor countries that they're just trying to get by. They're trying to create shelter, basic things for their life, and how a lot of houses are created with concrete, an immense amount of concrete. That they don't really care about the environment because they can't. It's like a different level on Maslow's hierarchy, right? But one country can't solve this alone, and there's not enough money for any one country to primarily bear the burden of this. And ultimately, if a country is trying to meet their basic level of needs, doesn't care about the environment and could get those needs met by another country who also doesn't care about the environment, it's not really a money issue. It has to be a global consciousness issue. And if it doesn't become global consciousness, it's ultimately not going to be solved. Or it'll be solved by a capitalist because the value of the solution will be so high, it'll cause a capitalist to solve it at some point.
This is a great question, but and it's a great topic, but also begs a discussion on that if everybody is playing in mud, would a person wearing all white clothes should go back in mud and start playing with mud as well? Because if the person does that, then everybody's playing in mud. Or if rest of the world is polluting, let's say, and one country that's a leader and become an example. So you have to create an example, right?
Yeah, no
so
doubt.
A whole bunch of bad people and one good person is there and says all the bad people are thieving and robbing the stuff. So why I'm sitting over here? I should grab myself a brand new 65-inch TV as well and run away. But you become an example because sooner or later, everybody who is doing the wrong thing would start looking at you and will say, okay, I want to be like you.
Well, it gets back to your fox story. If God's not going to give the sick, the healthy fox that's a hunter the food, right? It's going to give the sick fox the food, right?
Exactly.
And so there's no sort of escaping the fact that the U.S. or a wealthy or developed country can be an exemplar or a model to the rest of the world. And for that, there aren't any excuses.
Oh, yeah, I mean, we have an opportunity, we have resources.
Yeah,
they don't.
No doubt.
And if you become an example, look what every country's goal is. Do you know every country's goal is to become like in America? Every person who is in the world, they want to be in America. They want to be like America. Everybody says, oh, we will be like America one day. That's a goal, right? Mm-hmm. If we had set up a really bad goal, would every country have said that sentence? Nope. Well, they would have said, oh, no, we are all a lot better than the United States.
Right.
Thank God we are not the United States. But they want to be like us.
So Syed, there's a lot of people that are here right now that have awfully bad things to say about America. But there's a lot of people that want to come here. Should we start an outplacement program?
Look, bad people are everywhere, okay? Humans are humans. That's one thing I've learned. We all are humans. We have the same organic structure. We have same inner cell. We have the same blood. We have the same thing. We speak different languages. We look different, but we are the same. So good or bad people are everywhere. There are people who want to hurt your neighbor. There are people who want to hurt the next door city person. There are people who want to hurt another country. But there are also people who want to be like you and be like America and be like the country which is a beacon of hope where anybody comes who becomes an American. Anybody who wants to deliver, they can deliver. Anybody who needs support is provided. Anybody who needs the rule of law is given. And everything is there. But bad people, actors are going to be there. You cannot get rid of them one way or the other. That's the way the world works. They've been there from day one. They're going to be here. They're going to be there for forever. But it's the responsibility of the good people to continue creating a good example all the time.
Sounds like we need to keep it in context of the whole world rather than just in terms of this inner political dynamic and polarity that's going on, that we should stay focused on the aspiration, the goal, the hope, the being an exemplar to the world. And that's going to be the better way to spend our energies, perhaps, than just complaining.
It's always the case. We are the first nation that has landed a vertical rocket on the ground. First nation with the biggest algorithm on the search engine. First nation on many, many, many other domains.
Oh, yeah.
It's countless.
Yep.
So why can't we be the first nation? We never said, oh, why we are inventing a car when nobody else in the world has a car? Or why we are landing a rocket vertically when nobody else has done it? We should not do it either. But we created that thing. We have people like that in this country, those who think that it's their responsibility. So I think in America, America's responsibility is to remain the beacon of light for the rest of the world. And the moment it starts turning dark, God forbid, then people will stop aspiring towards America. We want to make sure that they continue to aspire, America continue to inspire people from across the world, and India or Pakistan or China or any other country. Their goal is to be like America. And no other country, every single citizen in this world loves that part of it.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
So perhaps after this we can focus on being more inner focused in what we're here to do and what we need to create in the world, and maybe not less other focused.
we always look at somebody, a funny thing is said that, we all can understand that somebody else is going to die, but we never understand that we are going to be one of them as well one day.
Yeah.
And we never talk about that, never think about it, not even once.
Yeah.
So if we start looking inside and we start realizing that we are as much organic matter as anybody else, then we'll start improving ourselves, finding out what things we need to improve. And as a country, nobody's perfect.
Yeah.
America is not perfect either.
Yeah.
It's a great country, but there are things around, again, those gaps we talked about that needs to be filled up. And that's the process. 300 years of process is going on.
Yeah.
It's going to continue on for another 300 years or 3,000 years. So that process is going to continue on. But as long as we understand our weaknesses and improve on those weaknesses, we're not going to be able to do the right thing for us. And we're not going to be like a different country than any other country on the face of this earth, which America is.
Yeah.
And to continue to be that way, go out. I mean, look at diversity.
Yeah.
Look at people from Guatemala or Mexico or China or Europe or Asia or Middle East, and everyone is doing their part in this beautiful country, and they love it. Yeah. I've been picked up by drivers from 3 ethnicities since I've been here. Yeah. Love it. Somebody said 40 years in the US, I love it. Somebody said 30 years in the US, I love it. 20 years in the US, I love it. That's the beauty of it.
And they're all Americans.
They're all Americans. That's the best part.
That's right.
That's really the best part. Nobody said, oh, well, I'm from Guatemala, so I'm Guatemalan, and I'm not American. No.
And yeah, that's right. And the Americans would embrace them as our fellow Americans.
Fellow Americans.
That's right.
Because if you go with the basics of America, then
it's an immigrant country.
Everybody's an immigrant.
Everybody. It's an immigrant country
in this country.
That's absolutely right.
The native Indians are the Americans, if you will.
Yeah.
So we all immigrants. It's a land of immigrants. Yeah. It's a land of hope, and we need to give hope to ourselves in this time, especially when COVID-19 is out there. Yeah. And we need to give hope to anybody around the world, because people are scared around the world. They
sure are.
People are scared with what's happening. You just mentioned a lot of challenges are happening globally. Yeah. People are very scared. So how we can give hope, and hope is probably the best help we can give, at least that much, so people can find courage to get up next morning and do the right thing.
That's right. Well, that's an amazing note for us to wrap on, because who doesn't want to end on hope?
Yeah, exactly.
we got to have it. Syed, I appreciate you coming out here. You endured what it took 3 flights or something just to get all the way out here.
13 hours.
That's crazy. All right. Only in a pandemic economy.
Only in the pandemic, exactly.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for the invitation.
Yeah.
Thank you. It was honestly a pleasure meeting you.
You as well.
And working with you today and learning about Exemplar, and we look forward to working.
I look forward to working with you as well. Everybody, Syed Gilani, Safr CEO. I'm Christopher Marston, your host with Exemplar Companies. Over and out.
Thank you.